Live from VentureX Studios, it's JP, Kathy, and the crew.
Nathaniel, are we live? Is it Good Morning Monday to you, Nathaniel? Look at that. Nathaniel says Good Morning Monday. That's pretty cool. I like that. Good morning, and good morning. You know who used to say that, don't you? Van Taylor used to say that. We're going to have to get him back on. Talk about what's going on in D.C. We've got Dr. Norm Clothier this morning. We're going to be talking about vaccines and all of the different elements that may be impacting your lives. In fact, this morning, it's come out that the patents for the vaccines are going to be given away to supposedly help out the countries that are less fortunate, and so that everybody can have the vaccine. Of course, at what point in time do pharmaceutical companies go, we're not going to invest in any R&D anymore because you're giving our patents away. So what's it matter? And so, but we're going to talk to Dr. Norm Clothier this morning. Also talk about, is it safe for your child to be vaccinated? That's a big question. They are saying that they're at 100% efficacy right now, and that they're prepared to give your 12 to 15-year-old a vaccine, and that it should be just fine. Of course, I'm vaccinated. My father's vaccinated, and but I'm not telling you that you need to or have to or should. That is a personal decision that you must make. So, do we have Dr. Norm Clothier with us yet this morning? We have audio. Good morning, Dr. Clothier.
Good morning.
How are you this morning?
Yeah, I'm barely hear you. I'm trying to get.
Well, we'll let you get your video there in order, and your audio. We hear you loud and clear on this end. And so, but so we've got Dr. Norm Clothier from Family Healthcare Associates this morning that's going to come on and talk to us about vaccines. Many of you may have a ton of questions. Please put them in the chat feature, and we would love to sit and visit. And Dr. Clothier is always very good about answering questions that he can answer for you. There's Dr. Clothier.
Mm-hmm.
Well, happy post Mother's Day.
Well, thank you. You too.
Thank you. Mrs. Clothier looked like she had a wonderful time.
We did. Absolutely.
You know, that social media thing.
It was a great day of it.
That social media thing, Dr. Clothier, there's no more secrets.
Well, that's the truth. And I'm not a Facebook user. I hear we're on there, but
you are.
Yeah, I guess it was a great day. We had, 15 or so of us around, and it's a kind of a small crowd compared to sometimes, but it was nice.
Now, did you wear 3 masks? You're supposed to wear 3 masks.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, great. No, we didn't. However, most all of our family is vaccinated, which is nice. And we're our own pod, so that's always worked out well through the year for us. We've actually really enjoyed a lot of good family time during the pandemic, so I think that's been one of the hidden blessings to the pandemic deal.
So, Dr. Clothier, talking about vaccinations, this morning they're saying that they're at 100% efficacy for students between the ages of 12 to 15 and are ready to roll out vaccines for kids. Should our kids be getting the COVID-19 vaccine?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. The thing about that is that kids actually get a lot of vaccines. I don't know if you think about that, but, there are vaccines against tetanus and pertussis and hepatitis A, hepatitis B, HPV, MMR, meningococcal pneumonia, all kinds of things, rotavirus. There are just a bunch of, polio, another one. There are a lot of vaccines for children because there are a lot of diseases that kill and maim children. And I think now that we're seeing an absolute increase in the numbers of infection with COVID-19 in children, I think the next logical thing is to try to prevent disease there too. We don't want a bunch of our younger population dead or permanently debilitated by COVID-19. And so I think, the bizarre part of that, the only bizarre part of that is I find it's really hard to declare 100%. There's always a variable, for in the human state of things, there's always somebody with a little different enzyme or a different variable. So I personally, just from a science standpoint, I'd like for them to say like 99+% efficacy rather than 100%. But I think it should be something where we want our.
Well, I'll tell you, it's interesting how it's coming out, because a lot of the questions are, we're going through this process of getting vaccinated, and yet we're still being told not wear just one mask, but wear 2 masks and now 3 masks if you're going to be in a room with a large group of people and still socially distanced. Now, of course, my understanding back in the day was you either socially distanced or you wore your masks, but now people have said that you do both. Will vaccinations at any point in time get us out of the mask wearing business?
Yes. And the point of confusion there, I think, is a couple of things. One is there always was social distancing and masking because of not wanting to spew particles. It was just considered much more important to mask up and keep distance to keep from spreading the infection before we had any kind of immunization. And so that's why there were number limits on gathering sizes, so that people couldn't be crammed in a room. That's why stores had different entry and different exit, so that you wouldn't run across somebody that maybe had the virus and blew it on you accidentally. And so there actually always was social distancing plus masking when indoors. And then, of course, when President Biden came into office, he talked about wearing a mask all the time, indoors and outdoors. And they're now backing down on that outdoor wearing a mask, of course, because they should, because dispersal of air is still a proven way to prevent the virus. And so you still don't want to be right in somebody's face talking to them if you are not immunized, they're not immunized, and you may spread infection. So the idea on 3 masks, I don't know what kind of logic there is. From what I've heard, there's the statement that if water goes through a mask, if you pour it in, then it's too porous because of the particles going through. And that's likely true. I don't know that 3 bad masks can exceed 1 good one or 1 worn properly. The biggest problem I have with the mask is people get so much mask fatigue that they, continually have it below their nose, which does 0 for protection of people around you. And keep in mind, too, just as a simple reminder, the mask was never, ever the idea of not getting the infection by wearing a mask. The idea is not spreading infection. If you, are sort of pre-infection or a carrier of the virus, you don't want to spread it by spreading particles. So I keep hearing people say, oh, if I'm immunized, I don't need a mask because I'm immunized and I can't get the infection. Well, it's still about 95%, and you could carry the infection to somebody very susceptible and never get the infection yourself. So that's why there's still masking, even in the era of immunization. And of course, we still have a lot of people who just won't get the immunization. So for them, we'll keep wearing masks and trying to prevent spreading the disease to them, because even if they don't want the immunization, we don't want them to die prematurely.
So, Dr. Clothier, as we get down the vaccination trail here, we're hearing that there's a 3rd shot coming out. Also, I heard that the immunization lasts, they're saying, looks like 8 months, and then you'll need a 3rd shot. Is there any truth to that? Do we need a booster to deal with the variant, and or do we need a 3rd shot after 8 months?
Yeah, first of all, there are already 3 shots approved for emergency use on the market. There's a Pfizer vaccine, there's a Moderna vaccine, and there's the Johnson & Janssen vaccine, which is Johnson & Johnson, but Janssen is their immunization wing. That's why that has 2 names. So there's AstraZeneca would be the 4th. So to answer the first comment, there already are 3 with emergency approval. There may be a 4th. Then there should be no surprise to anybody. I found there are a lot of virologists in America, most of them, I guess, on Facebook and other social media, who know more about the virus than most people. But viruses mutate. And so, yes, there will be an expected booster of some sort, but there are almost all shots right now have a booster. And so there's nothing really ready for an infection, but then it can wane over time and you don't, have that same robust immune response. So it's nothing unusual to have a booster. Now, whether that'll be 8 months or 12 months or 18 months has yet to be determined because all this is rather new. We've known the virus for 18 months. We've had the vaccine out for almost 6 months, and experience will tell whether we need a booster. Let me tell you about one infection, pertussis, which can be fatal in babies and can cause what we call the 100-day cough in bigger people, ages 5 and up. So you can be sick with a cough for 100 days, give or take. Not exact, by the way. But that pertussis or whooping cough, we thought we had conquered with immunization a few years ago because people were getting a shot for it in childhood, preventing the childhood fatal component. But then we found out that immunity tended to slip away over about 7 to 10 years. And I don't recall anybody saying that was a political, issue or an oddness. But now if you have a baby being born into your family, a child or a grandchild, it's recommended and essentially required that you get a pertussis booster because that infection could be fatal to a newborn baby. So there's nothing odd about a booster. And then, of course, viruses mutate. So one challenge I found is that people say, well, I don't really want the immunization because I had COVID in July. And so the problem is if you had COVID last July, first, most of the time the antibodies don't seem to persist well. But secondly, they seem to be against that one strain that person had. And it doesn't seem to cross over to some of the mutations we've seen. So you might be protected possibly against the same strain. But if you're exposed to a different strain 10 months later, which is pretty likely in the realm of viruses, then you need the immunization to protect against that. So I would say there will be a booster absolutely at some point in the far future. I would tend to think that would be included with a flu shot. There'd be an annual flu and COVID shot. That'll take a long time, of course, because, you have to get approval for those things and such. And so at some point, we'll probably see some degree of a combination vaccine. But for now, it'll be a booster. And I don't find that surprising. I think that's the nature of a virus. And that's the reason if you've had a common cold somewhere in the past, somewhere in your past 30 years of life, then you can still get a cold again because the virus mutates.
So, Dr. Clothier, is this the kind of virus that as we go through the years and we become immune to it based on vaccination, are we going to see it continue to change where we're continually having to keep up with its new format?
Probably, but the good news on that, the bad news is I would say that'd be likely at this point, since this is a worldwide spread. There are a lot of people, a lot of mutations, because that's how they mutate, is to meet up with different people and different responses. But on the good side, I don't think it'll be the same fatality rate over time. I think we'll see that the human herd response will prevent a lot of the really, really severe strains, the ones that, people end up in the hospital and dead within days. I think that strain, that type of response will tend to fade with time. Very similar, say, for instance, to, again, I hate to compare it to colds because people keep wanting to tell me, oh, this is just a cold. It's just that some people die. That's kind of different than just a cold. But, now if you get a cold and you're otherwise healthy, you're probably kind of uncomfortable for 2, 3, 4 days, and then you recover. If you have poor health and you get a cold, sometimes you get pneumonia, sometimes you get sepsis, sometimes other infections or a lingering infection. You feel sick 2 to 4 weeks, or you get a pneumonia that could be fatal. And I think we'll reach a point where this is much more like a typical type of cold virus. Now, the problem, if you remember back when the first talk about COVID-19 came out, it was the discussion was that it is a novel human virus, meaning it hadn't been seen in the human experience to where we had a robust immune response against it, or even a partial immune response. So it became extremely serious in infecting and hurting people. And so as we get more experience with exposure to it and more experience with immunity to it, like, for instance, getting enough people immunized that it won't enter into a community and infect all of them, then we can see a much more moderate response where it's not a fatal type response or a debilitating response. And that's what I believe will happen. I don't think the virus will disappear, but I think what we'll find is we don't have extremely, severe infection rates and hospitalization rates from this virus.
So, Dr. Clothier, moving forward and talking about the virus, one of the things that, again, people are super frustrated with is, okay, we're vaccinated, but yet we're still having to socially distance. We're still having to wear masks, and I know I come back around to this question, but do we see ourselves wearing masks forever at this point? Will there ever be a time where we're not wearing masks?
My personal belief is yes. And I think that time will probably be somewhere this year, meaning 2021. So I would suspect that somewhere around September, December timeframe, we'll find that there's a low enough infection rate and a high enough immunization rate that it'll be, unlikely to need a mask at all times. The times then that you would need a mask would be probably like going to visit in the hospital where people are known to be sick, going to visit in a nursing home, for instance, where people are known to be prone to infection, perhaps other, sort of close, high-risk infection because of the number of hours spent together, like assembly lines and things like that for work. But for the most part, for the average typical activity of day-to-day response, I think what we'll find is that we're able to be out of masking and away from, what some people perceive to be very difficult social distancing. I'm guessing that people will then be in the habit of not being too close and going up and coughing right in the face of a baby to look at them, for instance, and things like that, things that are reasonable. I've always been amazed how many people, when we would have a new baby, say at church or whatever, would walk right up and get right in the face and say, "Oh, I probably shouldn't have done that because I've been sick." And I think, well, you're right. You probably shouldn't have. And so, I think if we can be reasonable about symptoms and reasonable about hygiene, I believe we can be away from masks and social distancing somewhere in the next few months. Now, part of that will be we need the group of people who've decided it's politically more feasible to not have an immunization. We need them to be medically reasonable and get an immunization and reduce the spread and the infection rate. And so if we can reach that point, I think we'll find more freedom comes from that than from the freedom to say, "Oh, I don't believe that this is, a real virus or a real infection, or these were real deaths," and not get their immunization. So I would encourage people to get the immunization. It's basic science. It's okay. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't put a microchip in you. It doesn't search you out more than your phone does and all those things. And I think it would be great to have enough immune response that we don't have to live with, the restrictions that we find are very difficult, like having to be a few feet away from someone.
So, Dr. Clothier, one of the things I heard driving in this morning is that they're talking about, even if we reach herd immunity, that during different parts of the year, like flu season, cold and flu season. I don't know if those are two separate seasons or the same season, but
well, we've always had more infection in the wintertime statistically.
That the federal government would come back out and impose masks during those times now to avoid the spread of the flu. Do you see us moving that direction where we become a seasonal masking wearing country?
No, I really don't. I don't think that's something that the government has any desire. I can't figure out why the government would want somebody to wear a mask versus not wearing a mask, other than the overrun of death and disability of Americans. I don't think that'll happen. I think we've made it through other difficult flu seasons without it. And I think if people would get their shots and do basic hygiene, I think that we would find there's a lot of freedom in that, because I think we'd find lower infection rates.
Well, I'll tell you, I know that COVID has definitely been, we've been talking about it now, Dr. Clothier, for how long? I know you've been tracking our time in COVID. How long have we now been in COVID?
It was first delineated as a virus 18 months, and let's see, 10 and 3 is 13, 18 months and 13 days ago. And we shut down March 13th last year. So, that's been now 14 months. And so that's basically, all we've had time to talk about because of that. And it has occupied people's minds so much. And, I think part of that has led to what we talked about early on was protection fatigue, where people just get tired of being careful. And I would suggest there's not really a time you get tired of, washing hands and like not coughing and sneezing on somebody. It's always been amazing to me. I've been in clinical practice to some degree for over 30 years now, going back to medical school and clinical rounds and such. I'm often amazed how many people will cough right on me if I'm, listening their lungs or whatever. They don't turn their head, they don't cover their mouth. And, the vast majority of people do. The vast majority are very polite, very, they'll grab the Kleenex before they sneeze and sneeze into it or something. But there's always been that subset of people who just don't seem to get it, that there are hygiene issues, and maybe I don't really want to be affected. That part of my goal is to get through the workday without getting a fatal infection. And that's worked out for me, by the way, for all these years, which has been good. But I think you have to respect other people. And that's where the masking, I think, has been huge in terms of helping to define what type of character people have, because it's really about protecting other people. And, I hear all kinds of comments, and, most of them about how I'm an idiot because we have masks in the office. And, you just don't know when that next person will come in who's going to get very dreadfully ill and die, potentially. And so I think respecting all people by not spreading the virus to them is critical. And I think, to me, it's exposed how much people really value other people as to whether they really try not to infect somebody or not. And I think the very basics of hygiene and protection, if you wake up and have fever and cough, you probably shouldn't be around other people for a day or two. That's pretty reasonable. And I don't think that's government control and whatever. And I think we need to all learn to be reasonable about infection spread. Much like I would expect the person at a meat packing factory to not infect the meat with something like E. coli by not washing their hands or not wearing their gloves and protection when they pack that meat for me. I think we should reasonably expect people to not spread infection to us when we're in a public place or a workplace. If you're sitting in an office and the person next to you has fever and a cough, I would reasonably expect them to not be there that day so that they wouldn't infect me. Well, and I think that's the biggest lesson we need to learn from COVID is after all these months, we have seen a dramatic decrease in other infections because we've been more careful about keeping people isolated and washing hands and things like that.
Well, and I think it goes back to, regardless of COVID being around, we should have been washing our hands and sanitizing,
anyways. That's really what this has pointed out is we can reduce all infection by being careful. And, I think what frustrates people for obvious reasons is things like not being able to go out and eat, not being able to just go into the store at any time, shorter hours and, things like that. What we've found, with time is that the spread of the virus is airborne. It is airborne particle. It's not so-called fomite or surface, contact. So you don't have to go in and wipe down every surface every day at a store. You could have, things like changing rooms open. You can have, basic things that you would touch, like even grocery cart. A grocery cart is probably not going to spread the virus. You don't necessarily have to scrub it down in between. Now, if you want to be careful and wash your hands and wash the handle, absolutely. But I don't think we need, a brigade of people spraying down grocery carts in order to reduce infection. I think what we need is people not coughing, sneezing, and spewing particles onto people who are unimmunized. And so we'll all learn a more basic, I believe, response to infectious disease and realize that infectious disease can be a very devastating thing that can shut down a society. I mean, that's just the truth of it. That's why there are so many stories and movies about biological warfare and germ warfare. Is it can wipe out a community. It can wipe out a country. And I think, we have to learn reasonable steps in that process. And one of the most reasonable steps, frankly, is gain immunity through immunization so that you never face the infection and the consequences.
Well, I'll tell you, with school ending and we've got summer coming, Dr. Clothier, maybe next Monday we can talk about something else, like
I think that'd be
careful
great.
when we're.
I was at while you were scoping out the pictures of my wife and family last night. I was talking with my wife about how we just don't really talk about anything but COVID now, and I think there needs to be more. There are other health concerns out there, so let's talk a little bit about summer travel and health, and obviously if nothing big comes up on COVID, but I think there are a lot of ways to plan for instance, for your child's summer camp that's probably coming back, or vacation Bible school, or even summer school, and how that looks. There are a lot of kids that need to catch up on some schooling. And of course, family get-togethers, which famously start around Memorial Day and go onward for the summer. So let's do that. That'd be great.
Well, let's do that. I think that would be good stuff. And getting back to, because I think people are going to, I saw a water park open yesterday, and there were people out there.
Interesting.
Jumping and playing in the water.
Yeah, was it? Yeah, that's another thing, that there was so much concern for everybody, and for obvious reasons. We had a remarkably sharp increase in cases that came up over the last few months at different times, and especially toward wintertime. And, I did want to mention the reason there's more wintertime illness is that the belief is that it's because people are indoors more and they're not outside doing activities. And so they can infect each other by being indoors more. That's why it's believed there's more flu, more colds, all those things. So if we get outside and move around, I think being outdoors is a good way to be. And, do your activities out there. Play golf, tennis, run in the park, go to the water park, those types of things. The outdoor activities, I think, are very appropriate and safe. And, now that we know the spread isn't, the picnic table at a park where, you shouldn't sit down and touch it. That was a fear early on, that surfaces would hold the virus, and they don't. And so, be alert to the freedoms that you have, and that you can go outside and enjoy activities, get active, get your exercise, all those things be good for you.
So yeah, it sounds great. So next, so it looks like we have a new show next Monday that's not COVID, but will actually be centered around summer activities. Dr. Clothier, one of the things I'd like to talk about as well is planning your summer nutrition for your student that's going to be home. With
Great.
COVID
That
and
sounds
everything,
good.
I think there's been a lot of childhood obesity, staying home and not being out and being in our room and doing school out of our room. So maybe we can talk about preparing, our nutrition for our kiddos as they're home from school and having that summer break.
That sounds great. Let's do some practical things. That'd be good news.
All right. Now take good care of my dad today. He's on his way to see you.
Oh, is that right? Very good.
Yes,
I'll tell him hello for you.
Please do. All right, Dr. Clothier, you have a very blessed day.
I'll see if he remembers you. Okay. Well, thank you.
May not.
Appreciate it. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
That was Dr. Norm Clothier, Family Healthcare Associates. Just a lot going on with COVID, lots of opinions out there with COVID as well. And, one of the big opinions is, hey, why are we still wearing masks? Why are we still socially distancing if, in fact, we're vaccinated? And it's interesting, they throw the variant at you now, right? Well, there's this variant that's out there, okay? And so maybe you're not as safe. Maybe you can still get as sick, and so you still need to wear the mask. And so my question is, once we get the booster to take care of and alleviate this variant, will there just be another variant behind it where we're trying to, again, continue to politicize COVID-19 rather than deal with it from a medical standpoint? And there are a lot of doctors out there with different opinions and good doctors out there with different opinions as well. So it'll be interesting to see with the months coming, especially the summer. Texas's numbers were released this morning, and we have less than 5% that are looking at it becoming deadly for them and being hospitalized. I think we're at 2,000 people now getting infected a day or less. So the numbers have dramatically dropped here in the state of Texas since we've gone back to 100%. And so it'll be very interesting to see how the summer goes and what they try to do with the school year. Schools have already announced that they are going back full time. Plano ISD sent an announcement out that said that everybody's coming back. So suit up and let's go. You've got other schools that are looking at alternatives to having to come back if people still want to stay home. And so, again, very, very interesting how all of that works and how it's all coming together. It'll be interesting to watch it as it unfolds. So let's talk a little baseball news. We had a lot going on with baseball, and then we're going to get into something pretty heavy. Nathaniel, when I say heavy, that includes you. And so were you able to get that formatted over where we can play that? Oh, very good. So don't play it yet. Hide it. Don't show anybody. We're going to talk baseball first. Hold on. Because this is something that we're probably going to rant on with probably for about 20 minutes, because this is something else, and I definitely want to hear from you in the chat on what your thoughts are and what's going on with that. So first, let's talk a little baseball. Let's talk a little finals yesterday. Cardinals take on the Rockies. They're at home. They win 2-0. No big dramatics there, just good old-fashioned baseball. Of course, the big news is in his 10th year of playing baseball, Albert Pujols gets let go. The Cardinals are 21-14 right now. Colorado Rockies 12-22. Probably the biggest news in that game is probably going to be the fact that the pitching was just outstanding by Adam Wainwright. Can't let this go. First of all, if you're a huge baseball fan, you got to love Adam Wainwright. He's been in the league now for a good long while. Pitching still strong. He pitched 8.1 innings, giving up 3 hits, has 5 strikeouts and 3 walks. Ryan Hensley came out and closed out the game, gave up a walk in 0.2 innings, 0.2 of an inning. So very good game played there. Again, Adam Wainwright does an outstanding job as the pitcher for the St. Louis Cardinals. Pirates and Cubs. Pirates win that game 6-5, send the Cubs home, and I mean literally out the back door because they were in Chicago with a loss. Texas Rangers, huge day yesterday at home. They took on the Seattle Mariners, and there was nothing to it. That's right. Threw 2 goose eggs on both ends, and then all of a sudden the flood opened up. In the 3rd inning, the Texas Rangers put one on the board. The Mariners unable to do so, not able to put an inning on, run on in the 4th by either team. And then the 5th inning, something happened. I don't know if they woke up or what, or became woke. Oh, I'm going to start doing the quake shake on you. But in the 5th inning, the Rangers put 6 on the board, and the Mariners put 2 on the board. In the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th, the Rangers shut the Mariners out. And in the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th, the Rangers put 2 more and another on to win that game 10-2. No errors on the Rangers' part. However, the Seattle Mariners had 3 errors in that game. Let's talk about Ranger pitching, because that has definitely become something of a bit of a conversation. It did take a team of 3 to get it done, but that's fine. It's almost like regular baseball. Dane Dunning took the mound for the Rangers, pitched 5 innings, gave up 6 hits, 2 earned runs, 3 walks, and you ready for this? In 5 innings, struck out 10. Yes, you heard me correctly. He struck out 10. Taylor Hearn came in to relieve in the middle position. He pitched 2 innings, gave up 2 hits, 1 walk, 1 strikeout, and then Brett DeGal came in to finish out the game. 2 innings pitched, gave up 2 hits, 1 walk, and a strikeout. The Rangers go on to win big. They win 10-2. Really, your leadoff batter, huge in the game. He's your shortstop, Isaiah Falefa. Coach, you have to help me with that. He had 5 at-bats. He had 3 runs, 3 hits on those 5 at-bats, so he had a huge game. And then Nick Solak, this guy's becoming the savior for the Rangers. He had 4 at-bats, had 2 runs, 1 hit, 1 walk. Are you ready for this? 3 RBIs, only to be topped down there in your 4th position, and that would be Garcia at center field. 4 at-bats. He had 1 run, 3 hits, and 5 ribbies. That's right. You heard me right. 5 ribbies. So big game for the Texas Bats as they were able to take it at home 10-2. Just to close you out on the rest of the games around the league, the Dodgers lose to the Angels 2-1 in California. They were playing at home for the Angels. The Athletics lose to the Tampa Bay Rays 4-3. The Rays on a tear as they leave home and have taken to the road. Padres, big win over the Giants, 11-1 yesterday. And the Philadelphia Phillies. And it's interesting. I'm in a new group. I'm in a nostalgia baseball group now, which is kind of very interesting. Coach, I highly recommend, if you're not in it, to jump in it. And the Philly fans were crying as the Braves won 6-1. Of course, there were a few Brave fans in there that were pretty darn excited. So that rounds out your yesterday's baseball. Today, if you want to catch baseball, you got the Reds and the Pirates at 5:35. The Red Sox and the Orioles at 6:05. Angels and Astros. There you go, Coach. They're going to be playing in Houston. That goes off at 7:10 p.m. today. Padres and Rockies, 7:40. Marlins and Diamondbacks at 8:40. And then your Texas Rangers travel to San Francisco to take on the Giants at 8:45 p.m. So that's your late game tonight. Just some quick standings. Let's take you through the East. Boston Red Sox already on top, 22-13 right now is their record. They are 10-9 at home. You ready for this? They are 12-4 when they're away from Fenway. Wow. Yeah, playing good baseball on the road. The Yankees are 18-16 right now. They are 7-7 on the road, but they're 11-9 at home. Tampa Bay Rays, 19-17. They are 12-7 when they are on the road. The Blue Jays, 17-16, and they're pretty even across the board. Home record is 7-4. That's where they're making it happen. And the Orioles, again, bottom of the American League East, 15-19. In your American League Central, Chicago White Sox are 19-13. The Indians are 18-14, and the Kansas City Royals are 16-17. And again, the Detroit Tigers are laying on the bottom of the Central. They are 10-24. They are 5-10 at home and 5-14 on the road. And then here's where it's all happening. The American League West, and the Rangers are right in the pack. I don't think anybody thought, including myself, that the Rangers would have anything close to being able to be in the hunt, and they are. The Oakland Athletics are top of the American League West. They are 21-15. They are 13-11 at home and 8-4 on the road. The Astros are 18-16. They are 9-8 and 9-8 on the road and at home. The Seattle Mariners 18-17. The Texas Rangers are 500. They are 18-18 right now. They are 9-10 at home and 9-8 when they're on the road. The Angels finish out the bottom of the West. They are 15-18. And so again, the American League West is going to be a very competitive division again here in the American League. It's going to be very interesting to see how things play out. Can the Texas Ranger pitching keep up, and can the bats continue to produce? In the West, or in the National League, I'm only going to go over to where the Dodgers are because, you know, my favorite team is the Dodgers, besides the Rangers. Down in the National League West, the Giants are 20-14, the Padres 19-16, and my Dodgers are sitting at 18-17. So we'll see what the Dodgers have in store. It's a long season to go, folks, long season to go. All right, that's some of our baseball news to get you caught up around the league. Again, big topic that we're getting ready to jump into right now. And, Coach, I'll invite you into the Nostalgia Baseball group. It's very, very cool. What do we got? Fred says, why so negative, JP? Mentioning the losers first instead of the positive that someone won? LOL. You're killing me, Nort. Give me a break, Nort. Help me out here, Nort. Come join me on the baseball day. Just kidding, Fredo. Hey, Fredo, that's just the way it goes. Just talking about it, you know. All right. So big time, big things going on in Collin County when it comes to talking about BLM and Antifa. You heard me right. I did. I said Collin County, right? You heard that, right? So hopefully, Dr. Good, you're back. Kizzy, hopefully you're coming back because now we're getting ready to play. I'm going to play this for you. Can you get the sound on this too? We're going to get the sound on this. Watch this for a minute, and then we're going to react. I want your reaction.
Get the fuck out of my way! Where's the goddamn car? Get these fucking people out of the way!
This is happening at 121 and Preston Road. This is real.
Can't be standing in the middle of the road!
That is correct. That is a Plano police officer that you are seeing there. And you'll notice there's only one police officer there. This was on May the 2nd. Now, and if you'll notice, we've got a gentleman here in a vest with a walkie-talkie. This was an organized march, or not even a march, it's a protest. But there's two gentlemen here, one BLM, one Antifa. You'll see the one from Antifa come into scope here in a moment. And there he is right there. And again, this thing is being coordinated. Watch, you'll see him pull his people back. You see him turn them around and pull them back. They're wanting to go get in his face. They're wanting to video, and he's pulling them back. And they want everybody back in the intersection. Now, this intersection's been blocked, and there's only one police officer on the scene to handle all of this. You'll notice the car configuration. So there you go. The car configuration was also set up. So they get to, actually it was a Plano police officer, and he had Plano on his badge on his arm. And so anyways, my point is that, so if you'll look at the car configuration that's out there, and I don't know, can we bring it back up, Nathaniel? Yes, sir. So is there any way to kind of, let's go take it back a little bit where we get more of the front of the cars. You'll notice the young lady standing up out of the car. All of these cars were positioned. There was a timing of this where the cars, there's the gentleman from Antifa, by the way. Of course, you can always tell they're in the fully black with the white stripe, and they've got their full face covering with the sunglasses there. So again, this is a coordinated effort. This is at the intersection. That's a good one right there, Nathaniel. Perfect. At the intersection of 121 and Preston on the Plano side. And the cars that are lined up in the front, they were never moving. That was planned. So they blocked off that front. And then the cars behind them, the second row and third row, also the same thing. They get out of their car and they go into the intersection to stop and block the intersection. Can you take us back to the police officer? Gail's struggling with it being a Frisco versus Plano. And if you look, that's Plano PD right there on his little badge area there. And the Plano PD cruiser, I don't know if we can go back far enough. You'll also be able to see the Plano PD cruiser that's sitting right there. I don't know if we can go back. I know that it does show the cruiser. But that is, that blue uniform is kind of like their day summer uniform, by the way. And I think they use it for their bikes when they get on their bikes. This is a great picture as well. Again, blocking the intersection, you see a baby carriage out there. And there it is right there. Plano PD. That is the only unit that is out in the intersection. The only unit. Frisco's not coming to help. There's not more Plano police officers out there to help. And we've got people roaming around in the middle of one of the busiest intersections in Collin County. Here's my question. Is that a peaceable assembly? Is that a peaceable protest? That's my big question. Is this legal or is this illegal? That's my second biggest question. My third biggest question is, do they have a permit? I know that sounds weird, but if you go back in the day, the Bloods and the Crips had a function in Plano in the Harvey Hotel. If you can remember back to when the Harvey Hotel was up, they had a parade that they went through Plano with, a recruitment parade of all things. And they had to get a permit to have that parade. This is, I don't know what we're protesting. I don't know what we're peaceably assembling to talk about. But to use up the roadway like this, you've got to have a permit, like a parade permit. Do they have their permit? So here's the big question. The big question is this legal? Should the police officer be doing more? Should there be more squad cars out there? Because this is happening, and again, we show you the video. This goes on for about, do we have a time frame on that? What's the side on the bottom side of it? So for 2 minutes this is going on, and there's a substation not far from this intersection, but yet there's no more Plano police that are on their way. So first and foremost, yes, it is against the law. You can't block traffic. If you're blocking traffic with an intent to block traffic, then you're supposed to be written a ticket. And if you refuse to move your car, they should call and have somebody towed, because you can't impede a public roadway like this. And so here's my other question. My other question is, why isn't the police officer doing more? Now, one of the big questions that went out was, when this was all hitting it very, very quickly, was, well, we don't know what the circumstances were. We don't know what that Plano police officer was in the midst of. I'm in the midst of, let's get some more backup out there. I'm in the midst of, we got to get these 3 cars moving out. I'm in the midst of, I'm calling my PR guy at Plano PD, the chief of police at Plano PD, and I'm getting told what I need to be doing in real time so I can get this taken care of so it doesn't escalate into something even more crazier than what it was. Again, this happened on May the 2nd, but these things are happening all across Collin County every weekend. In fact, one of the crew members said that it was Karis, says, I've heard rumors that they are going to boycott at the Byron Nelson on Sunday. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. And so it's going to be curious to watch, because I haven't heard a word. Have any of you heard anything from Plano PD? Has there been a news statement released? Has there been anything publicly released saying, hey, this is why we dealt with it this way? This is why this was allowed to happen? You know, it's almost to me like the inaction that goes along with what happened here is what escalates a situation. Now, take the proper action. Don't take, don't use excessive force. Don't do the things that you've been taught not to do, but do the things you've been taught to do. And one of those things probably is, let's get some backup. And I agree, Karis, tow trucks should be there. We should have other police officers on site. Clearly this officer has been there long enough to back his cruiser up, park his cruiser, get out of his cruiser, and observe. He's been there that long, and this has been going on long enough. And you can't tell me that Plano PD's response is one police officer. Let's say they have the legal right to be there. Tell me that, hey, we don't need more police to keep the peace. And in my opinion, we absolutely do. Fred, I agree. Fred says Plano dropped the ball on this, in my opinion. And Fred, of course, is a retired police officer. And so when I look at this, I think to myself, what do we have coming moving forward? Is there an answer to this? Is there a way to where we can allow peaceable assembly, create a mode of peaceable assembly so that you can express your opinions without it turning into something that could potentially be violent? The gentleman gets out of his car. He comes up to the front. What are you doing? Of course, he drops a little F-bomb there. But it's like, how can you allow this intersection to be held hostage? And I don't even know what we're protesting. Somebody's got to help me here. Has anybody heard of anything that's been happening that's dramatic that would cause us to want to lock up an intersection like Preston and 121? If we're just out there to push our message, then why aren't we just sitting on the sidelines on the corners with our signs, with our megaphones, and expressing our opinions? Why does it have to be taken to the street? And that's something I think that truly needs to be answered. This is something that if we don't stop it, it's going to be like an infection that continues to infect the city. And what do I mean by that? I'm talking about the unruliness, the unlawfulness of what's happening at the intersection of Preston and 121. I'm not saying do not carry your banner for BLM, do not carry your banner for Antifa. If that's your gig and that's what you're wanting to do, absolutely, because I'm going to carry my banner. I'm going to hook my Trump flag up, and I'm going to walk on the corner too if I want to, and I'm going to talk about free speech, and I'm going to talk about the Constitution. So I'm not saying don't go out and do your thing, but why does it have to be unlawful? Why is it at every turn when we're looking at something that's BLM or Antifa supported, it has to start off being unlawful? Why? That is my question. I don't understand it. I don't get it. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Fred says, the problem is this probably set up as a peaceful protest on the sidewalk that the group decided to say one thing and do another. Fred, and that's very possible. What's interesting, though, Fred, is when you watch this video, and I don't know, can we put this in the feed, that video? Nathaniel, are we able to do that in the Restream chat feed? Okay. And so we'll have Nathaniel put that out there. You guys can go back and watch it yourselves as well. But, you know, we have to, this thing was highly organized. It had an Antifa leader, had a BLM leader. They've got walkie-talkies. They've got bulletproof vests. You know, you've got people that are helping them. You've got the guy walking around in the helmet with the vest and another walkie-talkie. And so, you know, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And, you know, again, Tommy Quigley says, why? Because they're wanting attention. Gail, great show. Thank you, Gail. Have a good workout. And so the big question is, okay, you're wanting attention, but you're doing it in a way that, and again, I know, Coach, what you're going to say, it's negative attention. And the answer is like anybody raising a child, right? If they can't get your attention on the front end, they'll do everything they can to get your attention on the back end, which means getting in trouble so they have your attention. I get that. But why aren't we arresting people? Why aren't there more squad cars out there? Why aren't tickets being issued? Why aren't cars being towed or at least being told to move? And if they don't move, they're going to be towed. One of the things I don't know if you saw, and this goes to show that these vehicles are in fact, if you could go towards the end, Nathaniel, and it's going to be where he's walking back to his car. Let's come back closer to that other direction because he's gone past it. Let's put him back in the intersection. So this may have been closer to the front than I thought. Let's put him back in the intersection, right? Let's go right there, I think. And if you'll see to your left here in just a second, I think, and of course, Plano PD is trying to subdue the man who's really doing what's right, which is get out of the intersection. Here we go. Watch this lady right here on the left. Nope, that's not her. All right, bring it back further, Nathaniel. It's further back, and maybe we're not catching the angle. But there's a truck that he'll walk by that a woman steps out of and starts flipping him off and screaming and yelling at him. And so I don't know if we're going to be able to catch that. I saw it here we go. Here she is right here. And she's wearing a BLM shirt. She is a BLM person. And again, how productive is it to now step out of your truck? You're one of the reasons the intersection's blocked, and you're flipping this guy off. If you have the right, there she goes. If you have the right to block the intersection, there she is. Isn't that beautiful? I'll tell you, I love it when people do that. Why do people think it's classy to flip somebody off on a camera and put it on social media? I don't get that. Help me out here. And that people do it all the time. It's like, you not know that that's going to go somewhere, and if you go apply for a job, someone's going to find that. Evidently not. But you can tell, again, these are all BLM cars or Antifa cars lined up blocking that intersection. So, again, it goes to show, and I agree with you, Coach Quigley. Coach Quigley's comment was we should work on a weekly session on this show, JP, with Plano's new mayor, Munns, and we may do that. Work him in and have him come on and talk about things like this and how we're addressing it. And I love our Plano PD, so I don't want you to think I'm bashing Plano PD. I'm not. Just because I disagree with something or I think something should be handled differently, especially based on the 28 years of criminal justice knowledge I have, doesn't mean I don't love Plano PD and what they do and how they do it, and I love their leadership. So I don't want you to think that that's the case, because it's not the case. The bottom line is this, is that if we don't start doing something about things like this, then we're going to be halted all over Collin County all the time, because this unlawfulness goes unchecked. You want to protest, I'm all about it. You got something you want to talk about and you want to stand on the corner and get on a box and do it, I'm all about it. That's one thing I loved about Hyde Park in London. You could get on a box and stump your speech out. People would come and listen to you, then they'd move on, and nobody was worse for wear. This right here is just simply making a statement, come and make me move. I'm going to do whatever I want to do, and you can't stop me, because I'm going to build this national battle cry of let's get rid of the police. Welcome to Texas. We don't participate in that battle cry. We support our law enforcement. We love our first responders on every front, and we're not asking them to leave. We're not defunding the police in Texas, and we have absolutely no direction that we're going in that says that that's going to happen. And so with that being said, get out there, do your job, do it the way you've been trained to do it. Don't go outside of your training, and properly handle these situations so that citizens that need to get somewhere or need to go somewhere can get to where they need to be. What happens if we've got a first responder carrying your mother or father who's just had a heart attack to the Baylor Heart Hospital, but they can't get there because these jokers have locked them up in traffic? Imagine if that ambulance was 4 rows back when these people decided to stop, get out of their cars, and jump in the intersection, and that ambulance can't get out. Then what? Is that when we do something about it? Gosh, I hope not. I hope we do something about it before then. I know I've taken up 20 minutes talking about this. Just want to let you know that this is important. Take a stance, contact your local officials, demand that the lawfulness stops. With that being said, I know the music is about to play in the ears, well, not my ears, but Nathaniel's ears, because I like to listen to the speaker. So I want to thank Nathaniel this morning for producing JP, Kathy, and the crew. He did a good job. Thanks for getting that video up. I think the video is telling. We've posted it in the feed. I say we. Nathaniel has posted it in the feed. Nathaniel, you're supposed to say, dude, you got a mouse in your pocket? There's no we with you, buddy. Nathaniel did it. He posted the link in there. Great job. Coach, hope you liked the baseball. I will invite you to this group. It's really a cool group. Fred, thank you for chiming in. Thank you for the crew for chiming in throughout the show. Fred said, he goes, heck, I would have accepted blocking a couple lanes and letting only one go by. Well, there you go. You know, again, there's reasonableness there. So with that being said, you all have a very blessed week. Hope you're having a great start to your week by starting off with JP, Kathy, and the crew. Join us on Wednesday. Another big show. James Sellers will be joining us. That's right. We'll be talking guns. That's right. And it looks like constitutional carry should be signed by the governor. Have a great day. Be blessed. We'll see you on Wednesday.